Lux is a fatherless weak loser who destroyed an entire country for betraying his family of royals. 5 years later, he secretly joins an all-girls school and has to clap all the girls while he hides his true identity as the Black Hero. It all started while everything seemed good in the country. Lux was running across a rooftop like a low-budget Robin Hood and ended up falling right through. He landed right on Lisa's plot and tried complimenting her mini melons to make her feel better. But she started threatening to send him up to the Lord, and the other girls got terrified, thinking he was a psycho on the loose. The next day, he was still locked up in a cell and kept pleading his innocence until Chronicle showed up. He thought she came to hear him out and kept rambling on about how he didn't intend to stare at Lisa's plot. But Chronicle was more interested in his dark sword. Just then, Chalice also showed up to take him to the headmaster, and on the way there, Tilfer called him smart for waiting until the 3rd years were absent to break in, causing him to realize that he was in the Royal Academy. Moments later, he finished getting dressed, and really told the girls that he was a prince of the former Akkadian Empire. She decided to let what he did slide because they were the ones who called him for a job and gave him a crash course on how the Empire created the Academy to train drag knights so they wouldn't have to submit to other countries. She then revealed that it was mostly for girls since there were barely a handful of male drag knights, so Lux demanded to know why she called for him in the first place. She was explaining how valuable he could be to the cause when Lise barged in with a bunch of other girls and refused to accept that Lux was going to join the Academy. To make things fair, Riley permitted her to punish him for the bath incident, so she challenged him to a duel to determine whether he would stay or not. The girls got excited and were sure she would win, but Riley told them it wouldn't be so easy because Lux was undefeated and had won the Imperial Capital tournament the previous year. Lise decided to take him a bit more seriously and promised to send him to prison if he lost the match before telling the girls to make announcements about the duel. Hearing them call her princess got him curious, so she told him she was the princess of the new empire, which made it her duty to do away with him. Afterwards, Airi asked why he just couldn't avoid making a scene, and he apologized before telling Nakudov to sit. She said he was likely going to do something cultured to her, and decided to keep standing. So Airi told him she was her roommate and reminded him that she wouldn't be able to pay off their debts alone. As members of the former royal family, they had become criminals after Arcadia fell and had to work as servants in exchange for freedom until their debts were fully paid. She then told him that he had to win the duel, despite the fact that Lise was currently undefeated, so he got changed and went out to the arena. After the barriers were put up, Lise asked if he knew the real reason why she wanted to take him down. He guessed it was because he was a former prince, but she promised to tell him if he could beat her. After he activated his regular wyvern drag ride, she summoned her divine drag ride and made him realize how cooked he was. The rest of the girls also knew there was no way he could win with his bumblebee suit and watched as Lise started the fight by spraying him with bullets while he dodged. He managed to fly out of their ronge, but her drag ride's extensions knocked him down and left him open to a beam blast. After blocking it, he called for a timeout and begged her to let what happened in the bathroom slide, but that only increased her anger, so she activated an even bigger blaster and suggested using his dark sword so he wouldn't get clapped. He refused to switch swords, so she wished him luck on the other side and started attacking with her armor extensions until she found an opening and let off a sonic blast that shattered the barrier and made him pee his pants. Nakuda realized that he was about to get clapped, and Airi also acknowledged Lisa's strength, but she knew Lux couldn't be defeated that easily. He kept on dodging the rest of Lisa's attacks until she got pissed and activated a special skill that kept increasing the gravity around him to hold him down. Using such a high-level skill with her other weapons started affecting her suit's stability, but she refused to back down. Just then, they heard a whistle blow right before a gargoyle bit off the head of one of the soldiers deploying the barrier. The entire academy went into panic mode, so Chronicle and Chalice started giving evacuation instructions to calm them. The other soldiers tried using a barrier to entrap the gargoyle, but it shot out energy-infused spikes to destroy it and almost took Lise out as well, but Lux got to her in time. By then, Chalice and Tilfer met up with Airi and asked why Nakuda wasn't using her status as a triad to join the fight. She told them it was because Lux was already handling business, and they both thought he was delusional for fighting a gargoyle on his own. But Airi knew better and told them to enjoy the show. Lise had managed to regain some control over her suit and thought about the request he made for her to wait for an opening to strike. She watched him closely as he evaded every attack until he finally gave the signal and got clear as she fired up her blaster and blew the gargoyle back to hell. Later that day, she was in the bath thinking about Lux, who was in bed dreaming about being in the old empire with his older brother. After he woke up, Lise came in to check on him and said she was only repaying him for saving her so he wouldn't get the wrong idea. After he thanked her, she decided to accept his apology for crashing into the bath before pulling up her dress to show him a crest of the old empire that was imprinted on her body. She said it was the real reason she challenged him, because he had caught a glimpse of it when he crashed in. He asked why she had it, but she still wanted to keep the specifics to herself and told him not to tell anyone else. Before leaving, she told him that he was officially going to become a student by the next day, which shocked him because he thought he was called in to fix a broken sink. The next day, he introduced himself to the girls in class and kept looking for a seat until he saw a pink-haired hottie he knew from his childhood and started catching up with her, causing Liz to feel jealous. He tried asking Filthy for her book, but she refused to answer him for not calling her by her childhood nickname. After he did, she gave him the book and made Liz's jealousy increase. After classes, all the girls started arguing over rights to get a special service from Lux, so Tilfer gave them a request form to fill out so he could attend to them later. The next moment, Liz joined in and asked him to become her exclusive caretaker. Before he could say anything, Filthy got up to give Liz 2 big reasons to back off, but Liz tried to bribe her with a donut. After eating it, she went right back to threatening her. But then Lucifer showed up and said she had a special task for him from Riley before taking him away. Moments later, they got outside, and she asked if he knew the Black Hero, but he remained silent. She then told him that the special task was for him to find the Black Hero so she could settle a score. That night, he had another dream where he spoke to Fugle about the Dark Sword. The next morning, he spent a few minutes squeezing a pair of massive milk jugs before jumping out of bed as he realized that they were Filthy's melons. She said it had been a year since they slept together and wanted to relive old times. He tried to explain why doing that was a bad idea, but then Tilfer came in and backed out, thinking they were trying to get freaky. Later on, Airi got pissed at him for causing another disturbance, and he told her that Riley had actually permitted him to share the room with Filthy because there were no other rooms available. After telling him to be a lot more careful, she left, and he went looking for the atelier chief, but he found Liz sleeping on the floor. She woke up and explained that she was actually the chief in charge of maintaining Drag Knight suits. She showed him the work she had done on his suit before telling him that he was now a member of the Academy's Night Squadron. She then handed his sword over with a request for him to give his all to the cause before taking him out for a date so they could build a strong partnership. After getting to the restaurant, she played the old wallet trick to hide the fact that she was actually broke, so he got some snacks to share with her at a fountain. After a bite, she told him about a weird feeling she started getting in her heart, so he took her to the clock tower for some fresh air. He started complimenting her on being able to fix drag suits and said she would become a great queen. But that triggered something in her, and she started walking along the edge like a junkie. She reminded him of the Acadian crest on her body and told him she was captured by the old empire and held as a hostage against her dad. Her father never came to save her, so she got branded and tried to settle into her life as a prisoner of Acadia. But after he died, she was the only one left of the Atismata family and became the crown princess. She told him there was a lot to being royalty that she still didn't know about and asked how it felt when his empire got destroyed. He kept thinking about that question until nightfall and drifted off into a dream where Feudal called him a weakling for not being strong enough to handle the gruesome nature of being a king. The next morning, Liz and the others on the squadron got briefed on another Abyss sighting, so she told Lux to stay safe and took off with the others. After Lucifer explained that he had to wait to be officially enrolled to join missions, she left, and he told Airi of the suspicions he was having because of the sudden increase in Abyss sightings. Moments later, Liz and the others got into position to take out the Abyss, but they heard the same whistle from the day of the duel right before the Abyss exploded and spawned dozens of gargoyles. Liz saw a soldier among them and asked if he was from the royal capital, but Barth told her he had switched back to his true purpose as squadron commander for the former empire before sending the gargoyles to attack them. One of the girls returned to give a heads up, and Airi tried to stop Lux from heading out because his suit was not strong enough for a battle against multiple gargoyles, but he promised to be careful and went to suit up. By then, Liz had just used her gravity skill to take out most of the gargoyles, and Lucifer suggested retreating to get reinforcements. But Liz wanted to destroy Barth's flute so he wouldn't be able to control the gargoyles. Barth called her a delusional nutcase for thinking she could pull it off, and she clapped back by asking why he was trying so hard to look like the Green Goblin. He got pissed and sent more gargoyles to keep her distracted before slamming her to the ground. Lux charged in to save her, but she told him not to worry and felt she had failed to become the princess everyone expected her to be. After ripping her uniform open, Barth revealed that he was the one who put the crest on her body. She tried to fight him off, but she was too weak and could only get a slice in. He decided to finish her off, but Lux caught the sword at the last moment and told her not to give up hope. Barth cut the arm of his suit off and moved back to figure out who he was, but nothing could have prepared him for the shock he felt when Lux pulled out the dark sword and summoned the Black Divine Drag Ride. With his amplified powers, he blasted through the rebel army Barth brought with him until Barth recognized him as the 7th Prince of Acadia and asked why he was fighting against his own people. He charged in to stop him, but Lux used a flash skill to cut through him in an instant, leaving Liz in shock as she couldn't believe that he was the Black Hero. Days later, Airi took him to a surprise party they threw to celebrate his enlistment, and the girls took turns congratulating him. Filthy tried to feed him a sandwich and ended up starting an argument with Liz, so Riley broke it up to get the party started with a toast. After a lot of drinking and eating, Riley finally got to talk to him without having to fight off one of the girls and said she had planned a special contest. She pulled out a form and said the first girl to take it from him could make him do anything for a whole week. She then gave it to him, and he took off running while every girl on campus chased after him to get it. Moments later, they kept searching across the academy while he thanked Lise for hiding him in her work shed. She asked for information on the Black Divine Drag Ride for her research, so he started telling her everything he knew until her drag suit grabbed him. She told him her act of kindness was a trap to get the form, so he gave up and promised to hand it over in exchange for his freedom. The moment she released him, he took off running and thought he would be safe behind some bushes, but Filthy was right behind him and used her martial skills to hold him in place. The form fell out, so she left him to grab it, but he was faster and managed to escape again. He made it into a room in the academy and decided to wait for the contest time to run out, but he heard the door and hid right before Lucifer came in with the others. They talked about going to test out the repaired drag rides, and he realized that he was actually in the dressing room, so he kept hiding and listened as they gossiped about how creepy he was. He got scared when they mentioned a manual that was on the shelf in front of him and accepted his fate when Lucifer saw him. The others asked if she needed help, but she said it was okay and told them to head out without her. After they left, she told him to stop hiding, so he came out and saw that the time for the contest was already up. He thanked her for keeping him hidden, and she asked to see the form since the contest was already over, so he gave it to her. Just then, he heard the sound of the clock and realized that she had messed with its hands to trick him. His failure made his knees weak, so she bent to tell him that he had to become her boyfriend for a week. That night, he told Airi about it before they both went into a private room where Riley was waiting to show them the flute Barth used to control the gargoyles. After telling them that they were still investigating the flute, she asked Lux to do some research and see if the flute was a key to anything significant. Moments later, Airi told him to be careful with Lucifer because she was likely hiding her true intentions from him. The next day at the dining hall, she told him about the political issues that came with her life as the daughter of a count. She had to get married to another powerful royal, and she didn't want to go through with it and planned to use the fake relationship with him to avoid it. To make the rest of the girls jealous, she made him lean in for a side kiss and used the opportunity to remind him that she would tell everyone about finding him in the dressing room if he refused to obey her. That night, she finished explaining the plan to him right before Lise came in with the others to ask questions. Filthy tried to sleep on him and triggered Lisa's insecurity again, so Lucifer tried to leave to avoid getting caught up in her drama. Lise stopped her to say that she had held hands with Lux and thought it would make her jealous, but Lucifer got concerned and asked Tilfer if she had any mental issues. While they were discussing it, Filthy tried telling them that she once kissed Lux, but he held her mouth shut so Lise wouldn't go insane. The next day, Lux waited for Lucifer until she melted his brain with her beauty and grabbed him by the arm to head out for their first date, while Lise and Filthy stalked them from the shadows. She first took him to get some suits, and Lise went nuts when she saw him without a shirt on. After spending the rest of the day walking around the city, they started heading to a restaurant to get some food. Lux was trying to make small talk on the way there until he suddenly sensed an attack and pushed Lucifer away before they got surrounded by rebel army soldiers. She told him to keep them busy so she could activate her drag ride, so he pulled out his sword and fought off the soldiers. After he knocked the second one out, one of the drag knights tried to smoke him, but Lucifer protected him and used the prediction power of her drag ride to take out the rebel soldiers. Lise and Filthy came out of hiding to help out and tried to cover up the fact that they were creepy stalkers. One of the soldiers took off running to escape, so Lux chased after him, but Alterize caught him first, and Lucifer told him she was her family's butler. At a restaurant moments later, Lucifer told Alterize about her relationship with Lux, and he had to stop Lise from blabbing away their secrets. Just then, Barzaride showed up to greet Lucifer and said she was going to become his wife. Lise immediately realized that he was the soul of one of the 4 great nobles, and Alterize went on to explain that Lucifer's marriage to him could not be cancelled, but she still refused to go ahead with it and told him about Lux. Barzaride told her it was pointless to even think of going against the marriage because Lux was too weak to handle a baddie like her, but she told him to stop underestimating the former prince. Barzaride decided to challenge Lux to a duel over his right to marry her, and she suggested spicing things up by taking Alterize as his partner while she would fight beside Lux. He agreed to it and gave them 3 days to prepare before heading out to start making preparations. Later on, he met up with a mystery partner to discuss the plans they were cooking up for the ruins where gargoyles and other beasts known as Abyss came from. The next day, Crew Lucifer found Lux sleeping in class and thanked him for accepting the duel with Balzeride, even though he didn't have to do it. He said he didn't mind playing pretend with her and also wanted to help her get out of the arranged marriage, but the 2 days they had left didn't really seem like a lot of time to prepare. Lys overheard everything and felt good knowing that their love story was all a sham. She then offered to tweak Lux's drag ride and suggested running drills to test out its features so he could figure out a plan for the duel. Crew Lucifer then told him to take the day off from playing pretend and left. So Lys asked why he looked so tired, and he told her about a job he had to do earlier on that affected his sleep schedule. Later on, he was still feeling the effects of being overworked when Tilfer stopped him to ask if he was free. He didn't have any tasks left to do, so she took him to a private room where Lys and Filthy greeted him with their freshly waxed melons and maid outfits. Tilfer also got changed to join them and said they did it to help ease his stress after a day's work. Filthy started getting the food ready and he tried telling them not to worry about doing all that, but Lys went the extra mile and said she was down to drain his dingleberries if he wanted.
What do you mean by that?
At the time, the 4 great nobles had gathered for a meeting in the capital conference room to discuss something known as the Ragnarok. Nalf explained that it was an immensely powerful creature concealed inside of every ruin and posed a great threat to the Empire because they were still not strong enough to face one yet. To solve that problem, they proposed putting Balzeride in charge of an investigation to figure out what could be done to stop the Ragnarok. That night, Riley assembled Lux and the rest of the squadron for a meeting about an investigation in the ruins they had planned for the next day. She also wanted to show them the flute and explained that it could likely be the key used to activate the deepest part of the ruins before handing it over to Lux for safekeeping. Lee started suggesting running drills for him again and almost made him pissed, but then he saw that Crew Lucifer had also been invited to the meeting and chased after her to figure out why. He asked how she got permission despite only being a transfer student, but she told him not to worry about it and said she was joining the investigation because it could help her achieve a personal goal. Afterwards, he got into the bath and tried to relax, but Filthy's melons nearly gave him a heart attack, so he asked why she was sharing the bath with him. She told him that Riley had given her permission again, so he didn't bother trying to argue anymore and tried to see if he could control himself around her melons, but one peep reminded him that they were too big for his cultured mind to handle. The next moment, she started sleeping off, so he got behind her to hold her up and fought his demons until he noticed that the scar she once had as a kid was gone. He asked about it, but she said she couldn't remember and told him to be careful during the ruins investigation because she wasn't going to be joining them. He thanked her for the concern, but her melons made it hard to think, so his brain took a commercial break. The next day, they all got ready to head out for the investigation, but Balzeride suddenly showed up to say he would be joining them as well. Lys didn't like the idea and asked the instructor for an explanation, but he told them not to worry about him interrupting because he was just trying to help out and wanted to make sure Crew Lucifer was safe. Afterwards, they got to the location of the ruins, and Crew Lucifer immediately started flying towards it, so they all followed close behind her. Just then, Nakudo sensed an abyss and informed them before they saw that it was a Diabolos, known to be strong enough to destroy an entire city. It immediately charged straight for Nakudo, but Lux stopped its attack and struggled to hold it back until Lys pushed it back with a blast. They kept trying to shoot, but it was too fast and dodged all their shots, and kept attacking until Crew Lucifer blasted its arm with her prediction skill. Balzeride started boasting about how the beast was small fry and used a sonic blast to push it back even further before showing off to Lux. He offered to call off the duel if Lux could defeat the beast before him, but Lys interrupted and threatened to beat him up for messing with Lux. Balzeride ignored her and kept trying to talk Lux into accepting the challenge until Crew Lucifer told him to stop thinking he was a big shot because his blast had only angered the beast. Balzeride tried to riz her up right there, but she told him to save it for his castle host and charged in to handle the beast on her own. She used her prediction skill to attack, but it easily dodged all her blasts and tried to smoke her, but Lux pushed her away in the nick of time. Balzeride took over and hurled an axe straight into its chest before running his mouth again. Crew Lucifer noticed that her powers were not working like they should, but she didn't have time to figure it out because the abyss started releasing powerful energy waves as it got ready to blow up. To make matters worse, the ruins also started to glow as well, so Lux shielded Crew Lucifer with his body until the light engulfed them all. He ended up in a dream about the day he opened a huge crater in the ground while testing out a new technique with Fugal and eventually woke up inside the ruins. Lucifer told him they probably got sucked in after the abyss exploded and thanked him for shielding her before suggesting that they head to the altar at the center of the ruins to regroup with the others. On the way there, she collapsed, so he told her to take a minute and get her strength back, but she was determined to get there, so he assisted her with his shoulder. After getting inside and seeing that they were the only ones there, she ran ahead and he tried to see if the flute would actually work, but then the altar suddenly lit up and Lucifer told him that she was not from the regular world. He got confused, so she explained that she was a survivor of the ruins and opened a secret passageway. Before he could process what she had just told him, the walls of the altar started to crumble, so he ran in through the passageway with her, and they both got trapped by a boulder. After taking a few steps in, she told him she had actually been found in one of the pods scattered across the room. He asked if the rest of her family were also science experiments, so she explained how her father found her while surveying the ruins and took her in with the hope that she could help humanity understand more about the ruins. Unfortunately, the fact that she was actually an alien caused everyone in her adoptive family to treat her like an outsider, causing her to get addicted to becoming the best drag knight so they would stop treating her like a research topic. She didn't want to believe that she wasn't a regular human, but the way the ruins reacted to her presence was all the proof she needed to realize the truth, so she apologized for making him play along with her desperate need for validation and decided to accept the fact that she would always be a lonely alien baddie. Lux stopped her and promised to stay by her side, even if she was probably related to Thanos, and that made her show her emotions for the first time since they met. After teasing him for how cheesy he was, Lucifer asked Lux why he was such a softie despite being a prince of the dreaded Akkadian Empire. He said it was because of the cards he was dealt in life, and told her about how he got kicked out of the Imperial Court alongside his mum and Airi. He begged them to save his mum back then, but no one offered to support them, and that led to him hating everything about humanity until Filthy saved him. He said living with her was what made him realize that his hatred was actually for the Imperial family and their ways of living. He had since chosen to spread love as an overworked handyman and decided to let go of his dark past. She wanted to ask him a couple more questions, but a drill broke through the boulder that trapped them, and Lise came through. After asking if he liked the upgrade she made to her drag ride, she started accusing him of getting trapped with Lucifer so they could clap each other. Back at the academy later on, Airi made him a cup of tea and asked for the details of what happened at the altar, but he left out the truth about Lucifer and only told her that the flute wasn't the key. She then gave him the tea and said it would replenish his strength for the duel against Balzaride. By nightfall, he was out still snoring in bed, while Airi stared at the form Lucifer used to command him and thought about the deal she made with her to knock him out so he wouldn't get mixed up with her problems anymore. By then, she had met up with Balzaride and he saw that she was alone, but he couldn't care less and activated his drag ride to take her on. Alterize also got ready to support him, but he drained her strength before clashing swords with Lucifer. She used her abilities to predict his next moves and managed to land a shot, so he faked an attack to Alterize, causing Lucifer to try and defend her. He used the opening to drain her abilities and used them to slam her into the ground. He started rambling about how superior he was and told her to get back up, but she told him to drop the macho act because she already knew that he had sent those rebel soldiers to attack her the other day so he could understand her powers. She also knew that he joined the ruins investigation to figure out the truth about her, so he admitted to knowing that she was the key and told her that any kind of resistance would be pointless because he had all the power to control her life as he saw fit. He was about to start yapping about his powers again, but he suddenly sensed an attack and dodged Lux's sword as he revealed himself in his black divine drag ride. Balzaride recognized that he was the black hero and laughed at him for using his power to help Lucifer, but Lux wasn't in the mood for another trash-talking session and charged in to shut him up. Balzaride stopped him in his tracks and countered with an attack strong enough to create a dust cloud. Lux dodged the attack and said he had figured out Balzaride's cheat code. He had the ability to drain a fighter's abilities and use them as his own, which was how he was able to dodge all of Lucifer's attacks. He admitted to Lux being right and immediately tried to blast Lucifer, causing Lux to defend her, which in turn gave Balzaride a chance to drain his powers as well. Balzaride kept attacking him from multiple angles to stop him from dodging and eventually started to overpower him, so Lucifer told Lux to stand down so he wouldn't get hurt trying to protect her. Just then, Airi cinched up to her to say that Lux was too stubborn to back down from a fight and told her to find a way to help him out. After revealing his plans to access the ruins with Lucifer so he could steal more skills, Balzaride moved away and realized that Lux was losing power to his drag ride. Lucifer also saw it and begged Lux to stop the fight with tears running down her face, but he refused and swore to fulfill his responsibility as her lover before getting his sword ready for a final attack. Balzaride told him an attack was pointless because he had already drained all his strength, but then Lux activated a special skill and charged in. Balzaride blocked it, but Lux went all out and broke past the barriers before cutting him down with a sonic slice that gave the night sky a makeover. The next day, Tilfer escorted Lies on another mission and watched as Alterize told Lux that the head of Lucifer's family had approved him as her fiancé. After she left, Lucifer made him sit with her and asked why he was acting shy after the speech he made about being her lover during the duel. He told her to stop teasing him about it, so she confessed to not fully being in love with him because he wasn't her type. He tried to hide the disappointment behind a forced laugh, but she leaned in and said she really liked his aggressive side before giving him a kiss that almost made Lise's eyes pop out. Before he could think, she gave him an even hotter kiss that deep-fried his brain cells. She then started telling him all the things she wanted to do to his sausage. But by then, Lise had seen enough and barged in to stop them. A couple of nights later, a mysterious new girl made her way through the campus and ran away from the others because she was too shy to talk. Rigri met her at the steps and warned her of a stalker that recently started terrorizing everyone in the academy before leaving and failing to realize that the new girl was actually Lux in disguise. Earlier on, Chalice told him about the stalker and explained that tensions were rising because the Ragnarok was also suspected of being on the loose and Balzaride, who was meant to handle it, had been sent to the other side. Lux felt bad about it, but she told him not to worry because the daughter of one of the 4 great nobles, who was also the strongest third-year student, could handle the Ragnarok. She then asked him to go on patrol with her, and he accepted, so Nakudo and Tilfer held him in place while Chalice started the makeover. Afterwards, he was at a bench posing as an unsuspecting newbie to draw out the stalker. But then he heard a voice in the bushes and saw a girl talking to a cat. Before he could figure out what kind of crack she had taken, the stalker showed up to capture him. The next moment, Celestia pushed him back with her blade and ordered him to surrender. After dropping a smoke bomb to distract her, the stalker tossed one of his blades, but Lux blocked it and got hit in the arm. Moments later, she took him to the infirmary and told him to take off his jacket so she could treat the cut, but he didn't want her to see that he was a guy and made her clean it from behind. Once she was done, he finally got the chance to ask if she was a cat whisperer or needed a recommendation to the psych ward, but she immediately got defensive and told him to forget what he saw. During lunch the next day, he kept thinking about how innocent Celestia looked during his time with her until Lise snapped him out of it to ask if he was feeling tired. Lucifer also wanted to know if he needed to rest and offered to put him to sleep with the Gawk 5000. But Lise interrupted her sweet talk and asked why they were still flirting since their fake relationship was over. That night, Balzaride's mysterious partner paid him a visit, and he started yapping about the revenge plans he had been cooking up, so she kissed her finger and used it to blow up his insides while Barth watched in horror. She then used another flute to summon an army of gargoyles to the prison. The next day, Lux made a decision about Celestia right before Tilfer showed up and took him to the office, where a bunch of other girls had gathered to watch the argument between Lise and Celestia over his admission. Once he was inside, Celestia thanked him for helping save the academy from Barth before telling him that he shouldn't even be in the academy. Lise tried telling her that there wouldn't even have been an academy if he didn't stop Barth, but she still refused to acknowledge his strength. Lux then asked to assist with the suppression of the Ragnarok and said he wouldn't leave until it was done, but she refused and said she could handle it on her own. He also refused to accept it and said her decision to hate men didn't make her strong enough to deal with such a threat alone. Riley stopped them from arguing and suggested having a duel in the Night Squadron's Stronghold Island so that Celestia could see what he was capable of. Lice told her it would be impossible for her to win against him, so she accepted the duel and wished him luck on her way out. That night, Senia stood at her door and thanked her for making the move to get Lux expelled. Days later, they got to the island, and Celestia told them to get ready for a light training session, but Lise told Lux that there was nothing light about Celestia's type of training. After an entire day of swinging and sparring, Lise collapsed in the mess room, and Lux asked why Celestia was trying so hard to replace David Goggins, so Lucifer told him she had always been a pain-addicted nutjob. Chalice got ready to turn in for the night, so he tried returning the outfit she made him wear the other day, but they all convinced him to keep it. Just then, he got called in for a special massage request, and got scared when he saw that it was for Celestia. He switched to his girl voice to give her the massage and quickly put on Chalice's wig before she got off the bed. Celestia recognized him and got excited, so she asked if he could spend some time with her after the training they had planned for the next day. He hesitated out of a fear of getting caught, and she thought it was because he didn't like her, so he accepted and made her excited again before leaving. Sania was waiting right outside to interrogate him because she didn't recognize him in the wig, but thankfully Crew Lucifer was there to vouch for him and made Sania leave. After telling Lux that his disguise could never fool her, Crew Lucifer told him to be careful of Sania because she had been plotting to have him thrown out since he first showed up. Later that night, Lux woke up and saw Filthy by his window in a plotful dress. She climbed the bed and asked if he wanted a hug like the ones they gave each other in the past, but he said he was okay. She still gave him the hug and promised to fight Celestia if that was what it would take to keep him in the academy. The next day, he met up with Celestia and hoped it would be a regular outing, but they ended up at a swimsuit store, and the sight of her thick plot made his brain cells scramble. So he ran off to get some air. She met him outside moments later and apologized for doing too much, but he told her he actually liked hanging out with her, so she gave him a hug and thanked him for being so kind. Afterwards, they were eating by a tree, and he suggested loosening up a little, but she refused and said she had to be tough at all times to maintain her strength. Hearing that made him laugh, so he asked if part of being tough was having conversations with stray cats and caused her to instantly turn red. She told him about how she wasn't used to having friends and said it was why everyone thought she hated guys. He was shocked hearing that and asked if it was true, so she confessed to actually liking Magnum sausages like every other girl. The next day, at the Atismata capital, Nauf got pissed off hearing Dr. Eggman from Sonic tell him that the Ragnarok was on the loose. The Drag Knights of the Imperial capital found its husk empty at a site suspiciously close to the island where Lux and the girls were training. At the time, Sania was asking Celestia if she was going to let Lux swim with them, so she took the opportunity to also tell her the truth about her love for Magnum sausages. She explained that there had been quite a few strong men in her life that made sure she didn't have any daddy issues and assured Sania that she would continue being the leader the squadron needs. Later on, Lux got to the beach to swim and saw the girls in swimsuits, so he covered his face and apologized, thinking they didn't want him to see them. Crew Lucifer realized that his medieval brain didn't know what a swimsuit was and told him about it, so he stopped freaking out, and Filthy greeted him with her money milkers before splashing him with water until he ran away. He saw Lee struggling and asked if he could help, so she showed him her swimsuit that barely covered the Acadian crest. He told her it matched her eyes to make her feel better, but she took it the wrong way and attacked him. Riley also showed up with Airi and showed off her melons while telling them to enjoy the beach, causing Airi to feel insecure about her cutting board chest. Celestia and Sania finally made it out and immediately started complaining about being forced to swim, so Riley asked why they wore the hottest swimsuits if they really didn't like the idea. Celestia claimed she only wore it because of Luno, who was actually Lux in his girl costume, and started asking for her. Chalice, Tilfer, and Nakuto immediately pulled Lux aside and told him to put on a swimsuit and continue playing Luno for Celestia, but he refused for obvious reasons. They kept trying to force him, so he ran away and bumped into Celestia, causing her dump truck to fall on the beach sand. He tried to apologize, but she refused to listen to him and walked away with Sania. Later on, she told Sania that Lux's grandfather was the one who actually trained her. She also felt responsible for his death and said it was the reason why she wanted Lux out of the academy, so he would be safe. The next day, they met up at an arena on the island, and Ragri listed out the rules of the duels before they both activated their drag rides. Nakuto was curious to know why Lux didn't activate the Black Divine drag ride, so Aoyurei explained that he was trying to keep its true power a secret and also said he didn't need it to defeat Celestia. The moment they started the duel, the stalker got caught by Chalice and Tilfer. They found out that he was actually a spy for a foreign republic and told him to reveal himself, so he took off the mask and turned out to be Sania. She told him her mission was to send them all to the other side and pulled out her sword to start with both of them. Just then, they heard a flute and watched as Sania activated her drag ride and swore to send them all to an early grave. Back at the arena, Celestia used a Thor-level lighting blast to smoke Lux and told him to surrender, but he used the recoiled burst skill to counter. She dodged with teleportation magic and charged up for a cannon blast, but giant tentacles suddenly tore through the arena, so Lise immediately ordered an evacuation and Airi started looking for Filthy. As the monster rose from the ground, Filthy was stumbling across the woods and fell into Riley's arms. After Lux checked on Celestia, they both realized that the monster was the feared Ragnarok the Empire had been scared of. Lux offered to assist her in taking it down, but she took off on her own and dodged a few of its tentacles before using her teleportation ability to get close enough for a blast to the face. As the Ragnarok went back into the ground, Sania showed up and told Celestia not to think the battle was over. They suddenly heard the flute again, and Lux immediately recognized the person playing it before the Ragnarok came back out for a second round. Sania charged in to attack Celestia, but Lux blocked her, so she called him stupid for trying to defend the girl that clapped his grandfather. Just then, the Ragnarok spat out a cloud of smoke, and Sania used the cover to blast them both away. Moments later, Lux woke Celestia up, and she began to apologize for what happened to his grandfather because she was the one who told him about the former empire's corruption. He tried to speak against it, which led to him getting arrested and sent to the Lord while Lux, Airi, and his mom got kicked to the curb. She expected him to hate her guts for what happened, but he pulled out the dark sword and confessed to being Luno before activating the Black Divine Drag Ride and promising to protect her. He took off to attack the Ragnarok, and Sania tried to stop him, but he told her to shut her up and tore off a part of her suit. She said the Ragnarok was impossible to take down, but he ignored her and charged up his drag ride before tearing through the Ragnarok's tentacles at the speed of sound. While he kept tearing through its defenses, Celestia got to Sania and told her to surrender or risk getting her insides blasted out. Sania dared her to take the shot, but Celestia couldn't bring herself to do it, so she took off right before Lux tore through the Ragnarok's head. He thought it was over, but the cloaked lady told him he missed the core, and Sania pulled it out of its corpse before picking her up. Her voice made Lux realize that she wasn't his brother, so he asked for Nain, and Hayes finally revealed herself. She called him a fraud and said she was planning to recreate the nightmare from 5 years ago, but he barely knew what she was talking about, so she gave him a hint about something that happened right there on the island before Sania used a cannon blast to escape. Afterwards, he patched Celestia up, and she thanked him for saving her, but she was also a little upset with him for pretending to be a girl. She agreed to forgive him on the condition that he would help her get better at talking to guys, so he agreed, and she also decided to support him being in the academy. Later on, he was trying to remember what Hayes was talking about, but he only got glimpses of what looked like a very tragic event. The next moment, he felt the island shaking and ran out to see what was going on. They all watched as a giant ruin rose up from the water, and Riley told them that was the reason they came to the island. 9 years ago, in the imperial capital, Feudal destroyed an important statue, and Barth suggested blaming it on one of the girls so he wouldn't have to face any punishment. Afterwards, Filthy was called into an office to take the punishment, but Lux interrupted and took the blame on himself. Filthy stopped him on the way out to thank him by stuffing a biscuit into his mouth and introduced herself to start their friendship. Back in real time, a day had passed since the ruin appeared, so Lux went to check up on Filthy and she told him about her decision to join the investigation. He asked if she had fully recovered from what happened the other day, and she thanked him for being concerned, but then Lise called him for something important. Moments later, he was in his drag ride, listening as she explained that she had added a new program to his skills so he could override the suit's limiter. She then told him to be careful because it could send him to the other side, but she didn't expect him to need it just yet, since he already defeated the Ragnarok. Later on, they gathered close to the ruin, and Riley told them Airi would be joining the investigation. After Lux checked up on Filthy again, Airi asked for his protection because she didn't have a drag ride, and they all got suited up before entering the ruins. Nakuda ran a quick scan to make sure it was safe before they started looking through. On the second floor, Airi detected some activity, and they saw that there were very few signs of plant life still active despite being closed off in the ruins. After Nakudo took another scan to make sure there weren't any abyss creatures around, Riley had them split up to survey the rest of the floors. Celestia thought she was going to be paired up with Lux and got excited, but Airi told her to handle the third floor on her own, which caused her to feel depressed. Lux offered to let her join his group for a few minutes, which brought her smile back, so she got excited to continue the investigation. Moments later, Airi told Lux not to try out his Riz game on Nakudo, and he asked why they always thought he was trying to clap everyone. Nakudo told her not to worry because he had never even looked her way despite being a shameless creep, so he tried complimenting her so she wouldn't feel ugly. The next moment, Nakudo picked up something on her radar and told him about it, so they stopped, and he went to look. After lifting up the rubble and finding a girl asleep, they started trying to figure out who she was, and Crew Lucifer also caught up with them to see the sleeping beauty. Airi asked if her last visit to a ruin gave her any ideas, but Crew Lucifer told her to leave with Nakudo in case the girl was dangerous. Once they had left the floor, she got closer and told Lux that she definitely wasn't human. She tried touching her face and ended up waking her up, so they both got ready in case she was a bloodthirsty Terminator. But after a few seconds of awkward silence, she went back to sleep. Lucifer tried talking to her, but she called her an administrator, which made them both even more confused. After getting back up, Karish introduced herself and said she was an automaton tasked with supervising the ruins. Lucifer asked for all the data she had on it, but Karish said her memories had been wiped out and begged them not to abandon her. After Lucifer promised not to rip out her motherboard, she told them her memories could be restored if they could fix the central control system of the ruins. She also said that Lucifer was an administrator, which meant that scanning her identity through the ruins database would be enough to start up the part of it that still worked. Moments later, the rest of the girls had caught up to them and were having a chat with Karish while Lucifer pulled Lux aside to express her concern over the fact that Karish kept calling her an administrator and also mentioned the existence of a creator that had the greatest authority in the ruins. Irie then gave them instructions to continue the investigation on the 7th floor, so Lux went to check on Filthy and told her to stick with him the rest of the way. At the time, Ralgris and the other nobles were at the royal capital trying to come up with a plan to take down Bart's rebel army. Gashudo pointed out that they didn't have enough drag knights stationed at the capital, so they started considering getting reinforcements from the academy. By then, Lux was carrying Filthy to help her save some energy, while Nokudo and Rili got to the production unit and saw the capsules containing dozens of Abyss. The moment Lux got to them, Filthy started sensing something that scrambled her mind, and they all heard Hayes playing the Abyss summoning flute. Lux decided to go check it out on his own, but he suddenly got attacked by a Diabolos class Abyss and managed to get back in time to save Tilfer. After losing part of his suit to its bite, they gave Lucifer and the others a heads up. Karishi started freaking out and told them there were usually 3 Guardian Abyss released by the ruins in a state similar to the one they were experiencing, so Lux suggested calling off the investigation. However, Rili refused, saying it would be pointless to call it off with the 3 Abyss monsters already on the loose. Filthy immediately activated her drag ride and took off, so Lux switched to the Black Divine drag ride and followed her until they found an altar and got teleported outside. Just then, the Abyss charged in to attack Lux, but Filthy caught it with her tentacles and smashed it into the ground. Lux took one look at the church and started getting waves of flashbacks before the Abyss pushed Filthy into the church's basement. Lux charged in with his recoil burst skill and used multiple hits to blow the Abyss up before getting to the church. As he walked through, he remembered that the church was used for human experimentation 5 years ago, but the flashes of Filthy in the same church confused him because he didn't remember seeing her there back then. After finally finding her, he tried to help her out, but she kept talking about another Abyss and suddenly started strangling him as something else took over her body. The last time Lux saw Filthy, 7 years ago, he promised to make the Empire safe for her, and she gave him a kiss for good luck. The memories of that day snapped her out of the mind control, so she passed out while Lux struggled to get his breath back and saw Hayes, who had come to join the fun. Back in the ruins, Lucifer and Lise had just taken out the Abyss attacking them, but they suspected something else was going on because of how easy it was. Irie called in to give them an update on the situation, saying they were close to the deepest part of the ruins, but Kurishi said something about needing a key to access it. By then, Lux was demanding answers from Hayes, so she told him that a seed had been planted in Filthy's body, making her a slave to the commands of a Ragnarok that was eating her up from the inside. She then told him that the Ragnarok's mission was to make her clap him at all costs, and was surprised that Filthy had resisted its control for so long. Later that night, he watched over Filthy and kept thinking about the deal he made with Hayes. She promised to pause the Ragnarok's effect on Filthy's mind for 2 days in exchange for him making Lucifer open the deepest part of the ruins. Moments later, Filthy woke up and asked for food, so he fed some to her until he saw traces of the Ragnarok in her eye and stepped out to get some air. Rili saw him outside the room and took him aside to remind him that he had seen Filthy 5 years ago at the church on the island. The Akkadian Empire was conducting human experiments at the time, and she was one of their subjects, so he went to save her, but she was already with the Grim Reaper by then. He didn't understand how she could still be alive, so Rili explained that the Ragnarok seed brought her back and had been slowly draining her life force ever since. The whole point of the investigation on the island was because she wanted to find a way to save her. Afterwards, Lux kept thinking about the time Filthy consoled him over the loss of his mom until Lee snapped him out of it to tell him about the overlimit skill she wanted to install on the suit. She left to get permission for the upgrade, and Irie asked if the upgrade was really necessary because of the danger it posed to his life. Just then, they heard Fugel's voice over the comms and listened as he said they had to break the flute and destroy the Ragnarok to free Filthy from its control. Later on, Lux found her by the window in her room and tried getting her back to bed, but she stopped him and said she already knew about the Ragnarok's control on her mind. She told him not to worry too much for her because he already had enough friends to keep him happy if something were to happen to her, but he gave her a hug and promised to save her because she was the most important friend he had. Afterwards, they all got to the ruins, and Lise started threatening to blast the doors open. So Crew Lucifer used her prince to open it up and told them about her administrator access. Once they got into the deepest part of the ruins, Kurishi regained her memories and said her mission was to clap them all for betraying her master. The next moment, Hayes showed up with Filthy fully under her control and used the flute to send her against them. They all activated their drag rides to stop her, but Kurishi also summoned a couple of unmanned suits to keep them busy. Celestia tried to attack Filthy, but she got dropped in an instant, so Lace tried using her abilities, but Filthy canceled it out before doing the same to Crew Lucifer and using her whips to slam them into each other. Really thought it would be a good time to explain Filthy's powers so they wouldn't get any more surprises, and Airi came up with an idea involving the flute. Hayes used the distraction to start the second part of her plan, and Fugel showed up to watch it all unfold. Just then, she heard the second flute and saw Airi playing it, so she tried to play hers, but Filthy stopped her, and they realized that Airi's flute was canceling out the mind control. They told her to give up and thought it was finally over, but then Hayes used the flute to summon the Ragnarok, and Celestia immediately told Lise to get into position. After they both blasted the Ragnarok, Lise thought it was too weak, but Crew Lucifer knew something was up and suddenly got caught by the creature's vines. Hayes told them that it could regenerate at incredible speeds, but they couldn't hear her because they were too busy trying to dodge. Lise almost got crushed by its strength, but Lux saved her and asked for the release codes for the overlimit skill, but she said it was too dangerous to use because he had already used up most of his energy. After telling her that it was the only way, he charged in with the recoil burst and cut through the Ragnarok to weaken it, but it regenerated even stronger than before and started to crush him. Hayes told him to give up and reminded him of the time Fugel called him a pathetic weakling, but Filthy said she believed in him and told him to trust his strength. Just then, Lise gave him the release codes, so he activated the overlimit skill and used it to blast right through the Ragnarok, causing the ruins to drop out of the sky. Hayes was shocked by the defeat and tried to cook up another plan on the spot, but Fugel told her it was pointless. That evening, Filthy kept Lux company until he felt strong enough to speak again and thanked him for saving her once more. Days later at the academy, the girls threw Lux a party to celebrate his near-death experience, and Airi told him about how torn up Celestia and Lise were over him being sick. Just then, Riley showed up, so he asked if the nobles weren't pissed about what happened at the ruins, and she explained that they were too busy preparing for the Foundation Festival. That night, Lise tried to ask Lux a question, but Crew Lucifer beat her to it and asked him out on a date. Chalice stopped her and said Celestia deserved to go on a date before anyone else, but Filthy had a counter-proposal and said she had more right than any of them because they were childhood lovers. They all started arguing about it, so Riley suggested letting him pick the hardest working girls among them and take them all out on dates as a reward. The next day, the festival had already started, and Lux asked Airi why there were so many nobles around. She told him about the All-Dragon tournament held between countries every year to decide which country had the rights to survey ruins. She also pointed out that he and the others in the Knights Squadron would be the representatives of the Empire. But because he had just recently escaped a trip to heaven, she told him to keep a low profile. She then warned him about someone called the Empire's Assassin Blade, who was also known to be the strongest drag knight that served the Akkadian Empire. She suspected that they would be targeting him for destroying Akkadia and told him to keep his guard up during his dates. Moments later, he met up with Celestia and the others and asked why he had to wear a tux, so Tilfer explained that it made it easy for him to blend in with the crowd since he had worked up quite the reputation already. After he and Celestia spent a few minutes acting like they didn't want to rip each other's clothes off, they went around the festival trying out different things and eventually took a break at the fountain because Celestia took one too many shots. She talked about her wish to be as loved as he was by everyone at the academy, and he started trying to come up with the words to subtly explain that she was too screwed up to have regular relationships. Thankfully, she reinforced her own delusions, so he got up to continue the date, but she tripped over him, and he somehow ended up squeezing the life out of her milk jugs. The others got there to break up their cultured PDA and took him to get changed again before his second date at an exclusive ball for nobles and drag knights. Crew Lucifer stunned him with her dress and taught him how to slow dance because it was hard for him to learn the ways of royalty while being a handyman. Afterwards, they went to the balcony and realized that Altarise was watching them again, so she told him to fake a kiss to make her believe they were still dating. He leaned in to make it look real, but she actually kissed him and said she liked the way it tasted before leaving him to struggle with the effects of her aura. He got changed again and met up with Filthy and her mummy milkers for the final date, and this time Riley joined the others to stalk them. Unlike the others, Filthy took him to a church and made him sleep on her thighs while she thanked him for saving her and keeping an eye on her during what happened at the island. Later on, he met up with Lise, who was still pissed at him for not choosing to go on a date with her. He tried to explain, but she didn't want to hear all the reasons why she wasn't wifey material and asked if he would become her knight. She told him about the increase in responsibilities she would get after graduation and said she needed someone like him to be by her side, but he asked if it would be possible because he was still technically a criminal due to his status as a former prince. She admitted it would be a bit difficult to pull off and told him to give her an answer before the last day of the festival before running off. The next day, Oiri met up with him at the clock tower and wanted to warn him again about joining the tournament because of his health. She also wanted to talk about the Empire's assassin blade, but she suddenly showed up, so he drew his blade for a fight. After calling him master, Yuruka introduced herself, and he asked if she was looking for blood, but she said she simply wanted to offer herself to him like she had for the royal family of Acadia. She got closer to make him understand that she was ready to offer any kind of services he needed and distracted him with her sweet talk until Airi snapped him out of it. He said he wasn't ready to give her an order yet, so she left, and he told Airi not to worry because he would just avoid her until after the tournament. That night, she found him in the bath and offered her soul-sucking got game, causing him to scream and attracting the girls. Moments later, he took her outside to talk, and she asked about the plans he was making to destroy the new empire so they could restore Acadia. After he told her there was no such plan, she kept quiet for a moment before sensing something and blocking a sudden attack from Celestia. They both activated their drag rides, and the others also showed up to join the fight. Filthy caught her with the whip, but Yuruka took over her suit and used it to attack the rest of them before telling Lux about a secret plan involving the fate of the Empire and vanishing with a camouflage effect. On the last day of the festival, Lise was practicing her speech until Lux showed up to ask why she had been calling for him, so she reminded him of the request she made and said she was looking forward to announcing it during the speech. At the time, Hayes was in a ruin with Yuruka, Sanya, and a new automaton. After Yuruka left to get the plan started, Sanya asked if they could really trust her, but Hayes told her not to worry about it so they could focus on their part of the plan. Afterwards, Lux and Airi got called to the capital conference room because the nobles had found out about Bart's plan to revive Acadia with the rebel army. They suspected that Bart's plan was going to start off after the tournament and had already located over 100 abyss creatures hiding in villages across the capital. So Nauf told Lux to act as a decoy and lure them out before finding a way to destroy the flute being used to control them. Airi protested the plan and tried to tell them that it was too dangerous for Lux, but Nauf reminded them of what happened on the island and agreed to drop any charges against them in exchange for the mission. They also wanted Lux to win the All-Dragon tournament at all costs, and he agreed to pull off both tasks despite all of Airi's begging for him to refuse. On the way back, she asked how he planned to pull it off with the 12-minute time limit he had on the Black Divine drag ride. He told her not to worry, promised to come up with a plan, and apologized for always troubling her, so she stopped complaining. Later on, he met up with Lise and asked for her mechanic expertise with the regular drag ride so he wouldn't have to rely on switching to the Black Hero. After she promised to do her best, he caught a glimpse of Yuruka and chased after her to figure out why she came back. After getting to a high point on the capital walls, he asked why she was holding up her contract to the Akkadian Empire despite it being destroyed. She said it was because of a promise she made with her little brother and told him about her troubled childhood, where she was labeled as the Black Sheep because of her addiction to mutilating people. After she told him that an empire destroyed her home country, he thought that she was forced into a contract by his dad in exchange for her brother's freedom. He asked if that was why she remained loyal, but she said her brother had already croaked and explained that her loyalty was to honor his dying wish, which was for her to uphold the terms of the contract by restoring Acadia. She then asked if he was really not going to destroy Atismata, and he tried to explain himself, but she already knew his answer and stopped him before turning to leave and telling him to be careful during the tournament. The next day, Riley called Lux and the other girls on the squadron for a pep talk before the tournament kicked off. By the second day, things had gotten a lot more intense, but Celestia, Crew Lucifer, and Filthy were still keeping the Empire at the top of the scoreboard. Just then, Liz got back from checking on Tilfer and asked for an update on Lux's duel. His opponent was stronger and tossed him around like a rag doll, but in the very last few seconds of the duel, she tossed her sword at him, so he caught it and sent it back into her chest, instantly securing another lucky win. Moments later, Airi found him by an edge and asked if he needed rest from all the fighting, but he said he could keep going and told her not to worry. That evening, she checked up on Liz and wished her luck before she went out for her tag team match. Minutes into the fight, Liz lost control over her drag ride and started firing into the crowd, so Lucifer used her freeze skill to stop her weapons. Lise told the officials that something took over the suit, but they refused to believe her, so Lucifer told her to wait for the investigation. At the time, Lux was flying close to one of the villages and saw a light at a cave, so he got closer and got a fiery greeting from Sania. Before he could finish asking questions, she used the flute to summon dozens of abyss, and they chased after him until he led them straight to Bugreiser and the other soldiers. While they were shooting at the monsters, Bugreiser thanked him for drawing them out and told him to get some rest. At the time, Lise was in a cell trying to figure out what happened while the other girls were also struggling to understand how she lost control. After Airi told them about Lux's mission, they tried to help, but she told them it would only make matters worse since they also had to make sure the Empire won the Dragon Tournament as part of the condition given to her and Lux. They decided to focus on Lise instead, so Nokudo reminded them of Yoruka's ability to take over another knight's drag ride, and Lucifer suggested finding her first so they could clear Lisa's name. Afterwards, Lux was trying to get some shut-eye, but the entire camp suddenly got rocked by a blast, so he ran out and saw the rebel army taking out Bugreiser's soldiers. He asked one of them to be sure it was actually the rebel army and got confused because they were supposed to attack after the tournament, but then he realized that their plan was to take out the Imperial army so the capital would be left vulnerable. Moments later, the girls regrouped to continue their search mission, but then Nokudo told them the tournament had been cancelled because of the rebel army invasion. By then, Lux had caught up to Barth and told him that the foreign countries giving him soldiers and aid were simply using him. Barth said he didn't care as long as it got him to the throne as the new king of the Empire, so Lux charged in to stop him, but Barth was stronger and kept him on his toes while talking about a great danger worse than anything he had ever seen before. The next moment, he felt the earth shaking and got shocked when he saw a Titan-class monster heading toward them. Barth told him that the giant was actually a manned ruin, and Lux realized that he would have to use his black divine drag ride to even stand a chance. While the giant warrior was making its way towards the Empire, Lux was playing tag with Barth and kept struggling to get away from him. After taking another round of trash talk from him, Lux decided to stop running and tried using his barrier skill to stop him, but Barth tore through it and took off his arm. A closer look at the separated arm made Barth realize that it wasn't actually the Black Divine Drag Ride. Lux finally activated the real one and told him it was a disguised lease added to help him save time. Barth got pissed off and charged in for a second attack, but Lux easily blasted through him and headed towards the academy. Airi was on a roof with Nokudo at the time and got a call from him asking for an update on their situation, so she told him about Lisa's arrest. At the time, Sania had just gotten to her cell and showed her the giant warrior right before Hayes ordered Fajula to activate its weapons for a little demonstration. Sania then told Lise to hand over the Imperial capital with her power as queen or risk losing it all to a single blast that could level everything in sight. Lise refused to accept her terms, so she told the rebel soldiers to take off her clothes so her Akkadian crest could be revealed to the people of the Empire. As they got close to strip her, she thought it was all coming to an end and got scared, but at the last moment, Lux tore through the walls to save her. Sania could sense the aura leaking out of him and dipped faster than the two-pump chump you dated.
What do you mean by that?
Lise could barely look Lux in the eye because she felt bad for always having to be saved by him despite being the princess of the Empire. He grabbed her sword and said she had nothing to be ashamed of, so they both got ready to join the fight. By then, Hayes was getting close to the Empire to destroy it, but they suddenly got attacked from above by Lucifer. She said it was a pointless attempt and tried to shoot her down, but Filthy pulled the giant's arm down with her whips and tried to topple it over. Fajula kept it moving and pulled Filthy along with it, but then Lise activated her gravity-amplifying skill to force it down. It appeared to work at first, but Hayes still got it to get back up, so Lux grabbed Lisa's hand to try something they had never done before. Before the giant could get back to stomping, they both combined the most powerful skill they could pull off and hit the giant with an attack that sent it crashing down. Filthy pulled its arm the rest of the way down, and Lucifer iced it to hold it in place. Fajula tried telling Hayes that it was impossible to reactivate it, but she had started going bananas and didn't hear a word she said. Airi saw the takedown and reminded them that the rebel army was still in the capital, so Lux told Filthy and Lucifer to handle them while he and Lise would stay back to make sure the giant could not get back up. Lise tried to tell Lux how good she felt to work with him, but he suddenly shoved her out of the way before a giant plasma slice tore right through the entire city, and Hayes revealed herself. While Lucifer and Filthy were dealing with the rebel army, Sania paid the nobles a visit and tried to reunite them with the ancestors, but Celestia showed up to stop her. By then, Hayes and Lise were going at it, but Lisa's drag ride struggled to keep up and got her smacked around. Hayes realized that Lux wasn't in the fight anymore and tried to find him, but a cannon blast from Lise almost blinded her, so she decided to focus on Lise alone. Lux was trying to find a way into the giant at the time, but then he saw Eureka in a field of flowers and went to talk to her. She decided to stop being friendly with him and said she would help Hayes take back the Empire before charging in. He blocked her and asked about her brother again because it didn't make sense that she was still loyal to the Empire that clapped him. She then explained that it wasn't actually the Empire that clapped him. There was a siege at the Empire back then, but she was not around to protect him, and the generals from their country also wanted nothing to do with the fight, so they left him to the hands of the invaders. She said his loyalty to the Empire was what she planned to carry on with and accepted the cruelty as her fate, but he said she was wrong and told her about Lise, who had a similarly gruesome fate but still managed to fight for what she truly believed in. She got tired of his speech and used a secret skill to close the distance between them in an instant before attacking him. He tried to figure it out, but she told him not to bother and kept attacking him to stop him from countering. While blocking her attacks, Lux reminded her of the little girl she once was and used the crack in her focus to deliver a blow that sent her crashing down. She still didn't understand why he was completely against restoring Acadia, so he told her that he destroyed it back then to free its people from the tyrannical rule of the royal family. The next moment, Fadula reactivated the giant to initiate one final order, and Lise tried to stop it, but Hayes hit her with a plasma wave. After Lux saved her, they came up with a plan to stop Hayes, but then Fadula released one of the giant's eyes and armed it to blow up the Empire in 30 seconds. They all thought any attempt to stop it would be futile, but Eureka cut the giant's control core in half, putting Fadula to sleep and turning off the bomb in the process. Hayes decided to destroy everything on her own and went berserk, but Lise tried to stop her and got her suit deactivated by a single hit. Lux took over and charged in with the energy he had left to land an attack that finally put Hayes on ice. That night, Lise finally got to address the people of the Empire and formally introduced Lux as her knight. They were all shocked to find out that he was the former Akkadian prince, but she explained his true intentions to make them understand how good he was and got a standing ovation. Moments later, Lux was thanking her for thinking he was good enough to be her knight, but then saw Fugel and got ready for a fight. Thankfully, Fugel was just dropping by, so Lise tried to ask for a date, but Crew Lucifer, Celestia, and Filthy were already trying to rizz him up. Eureka also showed up and offered him the ultimate head game before the rest of the girls pulled up and started threatening him to choose which of them would become his bride. With Lux's harem doubling by the day, will his collection of powerful baddies be enough to save the Empire, or was Fugel right about him all along? That is it for this video. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for similar content. And as always, thanks for watching.